Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous Tuesday. I've been stewing this morning some delicious tea that needs to get spilled all over the table. If you weren't a part of last night in the Fab community, it really is something special. Really. So here's my point of view on this whole thing.
Hold on, we got to reverse for a second. I'll be the sane voice in the stream today.
Yeah, I'm just the chaos.
Just some housekeeping. I know Zach is spun up like a top. Somebody has literally just like wound him up, and I'm gonna be looking forward to sending him forward with whatever it is that he's got cooking on this particular topic. But here's how today's gonna work. We're going to do a conversation about the banned and restricted announcement. I'm sure that's top of mind for a lot of people.
It's like the first thing we're doing, right?
Watching the stream. Then we're going to cut the stream. We're going to end it. It's going to end.
See you next week.
We're going to start a new stream.
Oh, I was wrong.
And in that new stream, we're going to talk about the Dark Horse approach yet again. We're going to focus on the VIA today. And I've got some great ideas brewing. I think they have a 20 to 25% chance of actually working, especially now that Starvo maybe is still around. We're not sure, so we might play it against that and see. But we'll come back in and actually have that kind of a conversation. I believe on that stream, Zach also has a Wolfpack beef update. So I will let you have the floor for that at the beginning of the next stream.
I did see people pre-stream asking for an update, and there is an update. I do want to talk about it.
That's very nice.
So we'll talk about that in the next video. This video, however, and someone noting rightfully, let me find it. Joe Solo says, Steven, the sane voice, we're in trouble. So here's... I just want to lay out what happened in my experience.
You're talking about the banned and restricted.
Yeah, last night. So this is the long-awaited announcement. The first Pro Tour ever for the Flesh and Blood TCG is coming up. And I think May 13th, May 14th, that region. And 2022, if you're watching this back way many years from now, which is crazy to think about. But we knew this April 5th announcement was happening. It's the next banned restricted announcement.
Yep.
And... we have precedent 2 seasons in a row where a new hero came out, going back to Chain with Monarch and then Briar with Tales of Aria. Yeah. Very dominant.
Did you say new hero or new Ruin Blade? You said new hero.
I'm trying. Right, it's like the Office meme. Try to spot the difference, and I can't.
Yeah.
Or the difference between a hero and a Ruin Blade, I'm not really sure. Yeah. But we have 2 seasons where this new hero comes out. Relatively dominant.
Yeah.
Right? And not like 95%.
Notably, though, as the voice of reason on the stream, we shouldn't be surprised that a new hero is out of the gate very good because we don't have a lot of experience playing against that hero.
Like, even just like immediately if someone figures out how to play it well.
1 to 2 months of meta shakeout should follow, and then eventually you figure out the answer to Django Fed or whoever it is that is ruining people's day. So
week to week, star of the show, colloquially called Starvo. That's a hard word to say with an Invisalign. That's a challenging word.
I don't disagree.
So week to week, tournament results are coming in, and Legend Story did a really cool series. I think it was Davis Kingsley, Tower number 9, doing the stats every week or every couple weeks. The percentage of the top 8s that he made up week to week improved every week.
Now wait a minute. Like, do we have this, Bryce? Can our Bryce protocol pull something up here? I think
no way.
We
were prepared.
We were talking about it.
Didn't know I was going there.
I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I'll give Bryce protocol a chance to find it and pull it up. I saw it roaming around in Asana.
Really?
Tasks were checked off, so I assume that it's in the system. But go ahead.
Week to week, percentage of top 8 Starvo was pretty much like a line goes up.
Yeah,
up to the right.
So it kept getting better.
And then also the percentage of the pro quests the week to week he was winning was very high.
Okay.
And it kept going up. I think to the tune of like 40+%. But there was really good representation. You see a lot of the heroes making the top 8. Pretty much every hero I think had a top 8 appearance. Even Azalea had a top 8 appearance, and that's saying something.
Lingard. I think.
And then like a lot of heroes were winning that were across the range. It was the whole thing, right? But very dominant. Then we went all the way to Indy, the first calling of the season, I believe. There may have been international callings, first U.S. calling. And Star of the Show won the calling.
Star of the Show did win the calling, yes.
Star of the Show won the Battle Hardened the next day. Star of the Show won a Battle Hardened somewhere else the same day.
Right.
Like in a different country.
So all of a sudden it was the Starvoing.
Yeah, and in the post, after Indy, what I was saying, and I'm very reluctant to cry wolf at banning or hero changes or anything, because I think a lot of times something is very powerful, but the meta just isn't adapting.
Yes.
And the meta could adapt, but if the meta is choosing not to adapt, that's not really. That's not always just the design fault, right? It's like if people really enjoy like the Django deck back in Destiny, or the Han-Ray deck, or whatever the decks were, doesn't necessarily mean they're the best deck or that they're not stoppable. It just means that the things that can stop them, people are, whatever reason, unwilling to explore or, actually
haven't
play.
figured out is the idea, right? Or have written them off, which does sometimes happen, but sometimes things are just too good also.
Yeah.
I'm going to find this for Bryce also.
Oh, you're finding
but go ahead, because I know.
So short version is Indy was super concerning for me, as I said on that one stream, because of the vibe at Indy, which is the between rounds was just kind of like frustrated and sad. And every round to the left or to the right or from across from me, it's a I'm so sorry. Like that kept happening over and over again. So the concern about the meta and bannings and all that kind of stuff was on my part less because like I'm willing to play into start of the show and to figure that out come Pro Tour.
Me too, dude.
Yeah,
I've seen on the Discord. I'm excited by it. I'm excited to throw all sorts of weird stuff at Star Run and see if anything works.
So all that to say, we knew after Indy that this announcement was coming. A lot of speculation about, is Starvo going to get banned? Is he going to get early Living Legend? Or some of his cards going to get banned? If they make him less good, are they going to make Runeblade less good? And all the way down the list.
Because it's not without precedent.
Right. That's what I was saying about the two heroes previously. They got really popular, and then there were some pretty aggressive ban restrictions or bannings leading into, in both of those cases, kind of the next meta.
And notably, neither of them took those heroes out of the metagame.
Specifically. Yeah, both of them actually showed up in Indy.
If that's the thing where you look at it in retrospect and you say, well, if Chain's still top 8ing respectively, and if Briar was top 8ing that calling, what chance did anyone have when those cards weren't banned?
If they hadn't, with Chain, they got rid of Seeds of Agony before Tales of Aria came out, and they pre-banned the Duskblade, which I think was smart in retrospect. And Briar is the same way. Like, if they hadn't messed with Briar, she would actually be so good into Starvo.
Yeah.
Any turn where she stacks up those Embodiment of Earth tokens, and then he's like, here's 11 with Dominate. And she's like, I'll block it with a 9-attack action for 9.
Do you think it was designed at the same time? I mean, do you think they were testing these decks together? Embodiments were going to 5 or 6, but didn't they say in the bannings of Embodiments we didn't really intend for this to be going to 5 or 6 Embodiment of Earth tokens? I can't remember.
That was less the. I don't think it was. This wasn't the intent. It's just that this is more abusive than we expected it to be.
Yeah.
Which. My offense turns into good defense is a pretty good equation. You were always flabbergasted with that ability.
From day one, I was like, how could this is the fundamental? I don't. Yeah.
Anyways, so now the other two that happened though, those changes came on the eve of a new set. This is not the eve of a new set.
Yeah,
we're halfway through a meta. We're expecting the next set around June, so we're only a couple months in. There's a lot of events scheduled. There's another calling this month in Taiwan. We have the first Pro Tour coming up, and so. Whether or not they were going to step in is a big question. Because I think there was one in when was it? November or December? With Briar, they said, we are going to do this, except for we're going to wait till after these nationals finish to really change it.
Yeah.
It'll change at armories or whatever, but not at the major events.
And we do have Dorian Reinar coming in with that classic bottles
that's right.
box at some point.
Could flip the whole script, you know what I mean? So anyways, last night, we do our standard stream yesterday. No, we don't.
Now, let me tell you.
You did the stream. It was a very unusual thing.
We did a very non-standard stream. So if we just want to frame this in a very easy-to-understand summary, what is happening in the background of Flesh and Blood is, there's a number of games that have very competitive scenes, and Flesh and Blood is one of them, and is played into it with this Pro Tour and this Pro Quest circuit and whatnot. Much more competitive than the FFG side, even though the FFG side of life had this going on as well. Netrunner had this going on. Any game that has a level of competition that is at least respectable is going to have groups of people, usually regionally, that are all in a special little secret group, and they're probably typing to each other and have thoughts, and they're building decks together and they're testing things. and they're figuring out what the best thing to play is in any given moment. Sometimes you'll see a team of players bring the exact same deck to an event because they say, "Oh, we figured it out," and then sometimes one of them wins, and then sometimes they just get roasted.
In fact, that kind of group is where our name comes from.
That's right. Team Covenant was Zach and I's version of that with some other Chelsea folks when we were like 14 years old, which is the greatest place to get your business name from that you would have to use for the rest of your life. But
stamp it.
Yeah, so these groups are happening, and they're all testing. And so this becomes a really big announcement for this purpose because I don't want to waste my time testing against Starvo this whole time if Starvo is going to get banned. So I stop testing against Starvo. I start testing against other things. I get kicked out of a testing group. I form a new one. What are we going to do? Who are we going to test against, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why all eyes were on this banned and restricted.
And the assumption is that this announcement's coming, 5-6 weeks before the Pro Tour. So instead of spending a lot of time testing before this announcement after Indy, everyone kind of can cool their jets. Do whatever you're going to do. But then this announcement hits and we'll have a nice 5-6 week period where we'll know the score, we'll know what cards are legal and not, what's going to be around, and then we can just lean into testing, whatever that is. So yesterday, though, evening, right, we knew the announcement was coming on the 5th, which is technically today, but New Zealand is like 20 hours ahead of us, or not 18 hours ahead of us.
They're operating in chaos time.
Yeah. So it actually, last night we were just sitting here after the stream talking, and then I refreshed the page and it went from black and white Starvo image to, that's also a tease. Because the last one had Briar as the cover photo and she got messed with.
Yeah.
Anyways, so black and white to color. And this announcement went up. And a few things of note. I won't necessarily read the whole thing. It's different than it was.
Yeah, there was a lot of So there's a lot of editing on the fly on this one.
Yeah. So
which I understand why.
What happened is at the very top it says classic constructed, no changes.
Yeah.
Which means no ban, no errata, nothing's different.
Yeah.
And then there's basically a section that is effectively like we're halfway through a season and Star of the Show is close to hitting Living Legend status. It's possible that he would hit that by the time the Pro Tour gets here. And it lists some events and how many points are on the line for the hero that wins each of those. Specifically, the biggest one being the Calling Taiwan, April 23rd. 100 points on the line. I think he needs like 165 points or something to Living Legend out.
Yeah.
And then this is where it went a totally different direction than I think. So no changes was my second favorite outcome. So my number one ideal scenario, as I talked about a couple streams ago.
My ideal scenario was changes. My second favorite was no changes.
Well, specifically, enough changes to significantly shake up the game where it doesn't just look like it did in Indiana. So where you actually have to resolve the meta, right? And all the best players can spend 5 or 6 weeks deciding what they think is the best. It's like you take a couple cards away from Starvo, you take some cards away from Runeblade, you take some cards away from Prism. Then the question is, are those still the 3 best decks, or do the other heroes now have what it takes?
You're saying dig in.
Yeah, just fully. Like a whole new thing.
Own the reins of this thing. Yeah.
That was my like number one.
Yeah,
that would be fun. Like the next 6 weeks, Wild West into the Pro Tour is like
also
an
the most
risky.
Moment.
Yeah. The second one is actually we're halfway through a season, no new changes.
Yeah,
like deal with it. Either figure out how to beat Starvo or figure out how to be the best Starvo in town.
Yeah. Which is reasonable. I mean, of all the games, all games, this is basically mostly the time. Mostly this is what happens.
Where the chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Which is where it gets interesting. And I have a lot of hot takes on this as we get into it. But
I like the chaos.
The chaos ensues in that they add another banned and restricted announcement on May 2nd, which is 10 days, 10 or 11 days before the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And effectively are saying, look, it's possible Star of the Show earns enough points to get to 1,000 on the Living Legend status.
And he'll be out.
So now, before the next moment where he could actually even rotate out, assuming he hits 1,000, would have been the next set, which we expect to be June, after the Pro Tour, after the ProQuest season, ProQuest 2. So I say all that to say that they add this new date. And then not only add the date, there's a very specific line that I want to read. Let me find it.
It's a bit of an exercise in double speak here, though, on this announcement.
Yeah. So here's the line that is really interesting to me. It's our intent for the competitive season through the end of April to be played out with no changes to the banned or restricted list, and for the Pro Tour New Jersey to be the first major event to tackle a new metagame.
So hold on a second. hold on a second.
Yeah.
So that can mean a number of things. One, we expect that Starvo is gone due to Living Legend status, and there's a new metagame that happens organically.
Yeah, if he Living Legends out, now that we have a May 2nd date, which didn't exist before, it would be inevitably a way different metagame.
Yeah.
A lot of people predict if he's gone, Prism's less popular because she's not as good into the Rune Blades, who get very popular. And then all of a sudden, what answers the Rune Blades? And, old him answers some of them. Old Showstopper Bravo answers others. It's just a very different conversation going on.
John Franny with the again, where the chaos comes from, the Living Legend doesn't change anything until next set. Not true. So it's the next set or the next banned and restricted announcement, which they have then now said is in May 2nd.
Yeah.
So they're saying if enough Living Legend points are accrued, May 2nd, Starvo would be gone.
Yeah.
So it could be that a new metagame means we're going to tinker on May the 2nd.
Because listen to this. You ready for
bring
this?
Bring it on.
The next banned and restricted announcement is scheduled for May 2nd, at which point it is possible that Bravo, star of the show, will have achieved Living Legend status. It's also possible that he will not, and that he is part of the metagame heading into Pro Tour New Jersey. Based on the results of the upcoming competitive events, and considering more than just the Living Legend status of Bravo, we will make changes to the banned and restricted list at that time if deemed necessary.
Which effectively tells us absolutely nothing.
So, it's exceptionally...
listen, a new metagame could also just be, you guys figured out how to beat Starvo.
Yep.
And now we're playing that at the Pro Tour. Right? So that's a new metagame too. So what is a new metagame? Well, a metagame is always effectively new if anything is changing. So maybe we figured out that Briar with this one card in the deck actually does better into Starvo. That's a new metagame. Now we got to account for this Briar. I mean, there's a million ways to say this, but they're saying we're going to look at it. Might be Living Legend, might not. Might do something, might not. Come back May 2nd.
Yeah. Now, at the time when this went out, this is why it's further pandemonium. Then we can talk macro about all these decisions.
Yeah.
Is on the list of events where these points are being tabulated, where it makes it possible that Star of the Show would actually just Living Legend himself out of the show, is I think it was like 3 of the 5 Blitz events that were actually listed were actually not Classic constructed. They were Blitz. They were Welcome to Wraith Sealed.
Welcome to Wraith Limited, yeah. So they were on the list of Starvo points, but they were not CC events.
Yeah, so at the time of posting, based on what was showing, it was impossible for him to earn enough points to Living Legend out.
Yeah, and then that's when the whole thing cracked up.
And the whole framing of the article felt like it's possible he just hits this before we even get to the Pro Tour. So we're going to add a May 2nd date as a check-in point. And if he actually has earned enough points by May 2nd to see himself out, he's gone and the whole game's going to shift.
Yeah.
Right? Then the pandemonium gets crazy because people start connecting those dots. And it's like, what's happening? And the article starts changing.
And it's like, wait a minute. These events, we don't actually have enough CC events for it to ever be possible for him to Living Legend out by May the 2nd. Then the list of events gets edited to like 3 events, but the text still says Bravo or Starvo could still be Living Legend by then. And then it's like, okay, well, there's not enough points to make Living Legend.
Yeah.
So are they going to retire early? Then we get an announcement that there's been an additional CC event push for a number of these ProQuest, Battle Hardened,
They basically have added more Battle Hardens at the events that were listed. And presumably, as stated, this was the plan. This announcement was supposed to hit first, followed by the banned restricted announcement. And then it's essentially like, if he really is the star of the show, like he's the man right now, then he should earn the points here.
Yeah. So prove it.
Yeah, but and the crazy thing to me is, there's various stats worth looking at, and I think, being objective for a moment before I get very subjective. One of the things about Chain and Briar I remember them citing was the percentage that those heroes were showing up all the way down to local armories. Versus Star of the Show, I've heard from a ton of players who say Star of the Show is not popular at their local meta. Mm-hmm. And I think this actually weirdly points to the thing I was talking about in Indy.
Because you don't want to be a wanker. Effectively. I mean, isn't that... Nobody wants to come in and be that guy unless you're playing Game of Thrones and then everybody's looking
Well, as long as
be
everyone's being that,
person.
then it's fine.
Looking at you, Ben Comstock.
But I think the recognition in a lot of local plays, I've even seen a lot of people that say they play this game locally and they're not going to Pro Tour and all this kind of stuff.
You mean the vast majority of players of any game? The vast majority,
yeah. And they don't care, right? This doesn't really change anything for them. It's like, I'm going to go play on Thursday and it's going to be the same thing it's been all along. So the real concern here, and this is why it's so interesting, all of these timings, is that these events, the podcast about this game being a sport, these are the big events, right? Indy, the Pro Tour is the biggest event so far. Like, it's the first Pro Tour and it's the biggest event so far. So the concern there would just be, what's the environment at that moment? What's the vibe of that event? Because this is going to be an event long remembered in the history of the game.
Yeah.
So they make the announcement, the extra battle hard. Now it is possible for him to earn the points to see himself out. And specifically, he has to win Taiwan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he can't get
Must.
there. So April 23rd comes around. If he wins Taiwan, and the one or two of the other battle hardens that already happened, it's pretty likely he's going to be gone. He doesn't win Taiwan, though. That's a signal. But
that's a new metagame, right?
This is what is, like, in one way, that's really exciting. All eyes on Taiwan, right?
Because, like, what beat it?
Right. Or even just, like, the result of Taiwan now has a direct effect on me as a player.
Absolutely. You got to pay attention.
Right now, it's like, oh, what deck won Taiwan? If it's not surprising, but now I kind of want to see it because it's like, the moment he either wins or doesn't win that event, that'll change what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's where, to kind of compound the pandemonium, is those paragraphs I read earlier, right? Which is, they're saying he could Living Legend out. But even if he doesn't, we're going to look at these results and we might change things anyway.
Yeah. So that's not even reliable as an indicator of where to maneuver.
Yeah, the only thing that would be reliable is if he wins the first couple battle hard and wins Taiwan, and it's like, oh, he's definitely gone.
Yeah.
But even then, based on that paragraph, it's like, they could still make other changes if he does Living Legend himself out.
Yeah, which is there, and it could be the desire, right? Don't let people know exactly where things are going to be.
Yeah.
So that the game stays exciting in that kind of a way. Exciting in the way that my wife doesn't tell me where we're going on a weekend, right? It's like, I'd rather just know. But you could also just be clear about it and say, like, hey, there's a banned and restricted announcement on May the 2nd. If Starva has Living Legend points enough, he's gone. Otherwise, get ready. He's coming to the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
The end, right?
Yeah. Well, and the recognition too, and just to be clear, we don't have an extensive Magic history, but I was talking with
extensive. We have no Magic history.
Yeah, we don't have a history.
It extends to one throwback stream game.
I was talking to
and me buying eBay balls.
A friend of the show, friend of the store, Joe Freeman.
Oh, one of my
Joe.
favorites. Really,
yeah, I love Joe Freeman, and he has a long history in Magic. And he was saying, and this could be wrong, but that they historically did new set release 2 or 3 weeks before Pro Tour, and it's like that 2 or 3 weeks is like, go solve it. Then everyone gets to watch what have the best players decided.
Okay. That was the idea.
I think one of the key differences here is that it wasn't ever expressly stated there wouldn't be a May 2nd thing. Like, it's never been stated that they couldn't come out on a random Tuesday or Saturday or Sunday and say, you know what?
Technically any day.
These things, yes. Thursday, Friday, Wednesday,
Monday.
But they've never said they won't come out and say, hey, today we're deciding these things are banned. They could do that the day before the Pro Tour.
Yeah, they totally could. They do it out the Pro Tour if they wanted to.
Yeah, literally. It's like, hey, guess what?
Welcome to the first round. Today, Starva's banned.
Or it's like, hey, raise your hand if you're playing Starva. It's like, cool. It's like, you're out. All right, you're done. Auto loss. So they can do whatever they want, right? It's important to imagine.
Probably shouldn't do that one.
I wouldn't recommend it. But I think it's important as a publisher to understand the expectations of the player base, the community. Particularly when we come back to this idea of a game as a sport. And
I would say the expectations of 5% of that community.
Well, I mean, the question mark is what percentage of the community had certain expectations, right? Especially the people that are going to...
Maybe 10%.
Going to this event.
I'll give you 10%.
So I have no problem. Like I said last time or the time before, Wild West is cool to me. Like if they literally said May 2nd, we are making announcements that are going to fundamentally change the game. The kind of loosey-goosey is the worst thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, do I practice now? And then like the deck I've been practicing just gets wrecked?
Yeah, it's possible.
So it makes you hesitant to invest any until you find that out.
Well, that's not the right decision.
But the other part is that we're really close to this event, right? Mm-hmm. So the very anecdotal conversation piece, you remember Jesse from Winning Agenda? Mm-hmm. He's coming to the Pro Tour from Australia.
Wow.
That's a big trip. And he's coming early. He can never in New York City.
You part of the Wolf Pack?
No. Not yet.
Get on there, man.
He's coming early to go to New York City, apparently bringing a spouse, that kind of thing. And so he's showing up a week early to experience New York City with his spouse. If the game fundamentally changes on May 2nd, He's got like 3 days
Yeah.
before he leaves to come to New York for a trip he has already booked
Yeah. Yeah.
based on certain expectations. Now, whether those expectations are good or bad,
You got a deck you're happy with. Yeah.
or even you thought you were going to have a month beforehand
Yeah.
to get a deck you're happy with so that when you show up to New York, easy breezy, you're just chill, having your vacation, doing your thing. And so you just have an expectation that certainly changes after the point which you've already committed to going to a certain event, or you worked hard to qualify for an event, and like all cards on the table, if you'd known what is out here, I know people that don't. Like, personally, the weekend before is a really good weekend for me, so I can spend the whole weekend jamming games.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So
you're in a unique position to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I have ready access to a bunch of people that I can play with. But like, if you only get 2 or 3 weekends to practice for the Pro Tour and you were planning those in April, and this hits, it's like, that's pretty debilitating.
It's kind of funny because you just on the marketing side of it, you effectively lose the benefit of either approach by doing it this way. I'm not willing to argue for that, but I think I'll just throw the idea out there into the water. But it's kind of like, for the people who are advocating no changes, they didn't really get satisfied here, because then it's like, well, they're still willing to tinker with stuff, and I wish they wouldn't.
Well, no changes, but also now Starvo could rotate out.
Yeah.
And even if he doesn't, and even if he does, we also might make sweeping changes.
Yeah, and then the people who wanted a lot of changes or a Starvo ban or whatnot, they're not happy. But it still might be what they want in the end. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But that's where I really, if it were me, what I would have done is just make a decision and then just say, like, you know what? Starvo's either going to Living Legend or not. It's up to the player base. I mean, if it's that good, we already have the mechanism by which it will be gone. If it's not gone by then, figure it out. Because obviously it was getting beat if it's not gone by then. And
the mechanism you established previously wouldn't organically have Living Legend him out until June.
Yeah.
Now, that said, they never said they couldn't have it the next one be a month later.
Correct.
But historically, what we've experienced over the past year is before a set comes out and then like in the middle of the meta, which is what it's the midpoint.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by expectations too, right? Where it's like they can do whatever they want. The day before an event, they can determine there's this busted combo that just ruins the game and we're banning it.
Sure.
And we've made that decision to make sure that our tournament is not just like
just degenerate.
Comboed, right?
Sure.
I don't even think that's necessarily a good decision, but they could make that choice. And so what the bigger ramification of this decision to me, my conclusion actually, as I was like, because it hit right before I left to go home, this announcement, and it's like, oh, no changes. That's crazy. And then started dawning on me that like he might they had the May 2nd. That's the biggest piece of this announcement. And then I get home and like the internet's going wild.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, whoa.
That's a surprise. Usually people posting, particularly anonymously on the internet, very buttoned up, not hyperbolic at all. So I'm surprised that there was such a
right
an outrage.
But I was already leaning this way. We talked about this on the Sport podcast. We talked about this on last week's stream. It's like the recognition for me is I'm going to keep playing the game. I'm going to keep practicing the fundamentals, and I'm going to keep playing the things I enjoy. And if the decks I enjoy get hit on a ban restrict list on May 2nd,
all of them,
then...
But you do enjoy Ruin Blades.
Yep. I also enjoy Old Bravo. There's actually a wide range of decks that I would be willing to play.
Ruin Blade, Bravo. I'm seeing a pattern here of things that you enjoy.
It's not my fault. Ruin Blade and Guardian are fun.
Ruin Blade, Guardian. Yeah, but so too good.
Here's the point.
Too good.
Let's say... this is my favorite hero. Let's say May 2nd comes and they're like, you know what? Skeleton's banned, Sonata's banned, Rosetta's elemental only. Mm-hmm. Go down the list.
Yeah.
I mean, Rattlebone's banned. Like, just all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Banned. The recognition is, one, I'm happy to consider pivoting to Briar if she's anywhere remotely playable. I'm happy to go to Old Bravo. I'm happy to keep playing this even without all those cards.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going that deep, then the game is totally different.
I will say we've not seen the ban hammer happen in a way that debilitates a hero.
That's right.
When's the last hero that had cards banned that was rendered useless? Ninja Turtle to a degree with drone, but that's way early, and that was still fine.
I don't think it was ever rendered useless. So that, unless they ban a hero,
right,
like Star of the Show. But the recognition is, if you're playing what you enjoy playing, it's unlikely the ban restriction list is going to be so deep cut that it's going to fundamentally change the way your deck is functioning. Now, Starvo being not around, or Viscerate not being as popular, or Runeblade not being as good, does fundamentally shift the meta, which then fundamentally shifts the pace of the game and what cards in your deck and that kind of stuff. But it all kind of comes back to, if you just play what you enjoy playing, it's fine. Yeah. Like, and May 2nd is going to come around and you'll figure it out. I think the biggest thing for me, though, is now I have a precedent set where Legend Story and how they handle major tournament announcements and ban restricted is unpredictable.
Yeah.
So that's going to shake people. That's going to make people reluctant to book France.
To some degree, though, it's great, right?
If that's the expectation, I love it.
Well, now it is. So welcome to the club.
If 10 to 12 days before every major event,
play your best.
They're willing to just totally shake things up.
Yeah.
But that was not very clear before. So this particular one, I think, will come off rough.
I don't think they're going to do anything. They're not going to do anything.
Well, they don't have to if
Starvo either goes or doesn't, and then aside from that, they're not doing anything.
If I had to predict, you want to mark this one and share it later.
Yeah.
I would suspect, assuming he Living Legends out, that they don't touch anything.
I mean, I think it's worded a certain way to leave the door open, because you don't necessarily want to just commit if over the next month you have just the most oppressive outcry from a player base. You don't want to have well, we've already said we're not going to do anything, so we're not, and here's your Pro Tour, enjoy. I think they've left the door open, which is the goal. I think that's the objective. It is not ideal from an expectations or a practice or a training methodology, but it does still allow them a final, we need to do something now or this Pro Tour is going to be awful moment. Now, I don't think anything right now, even if Starvo's there, I don't think that Pro Tour is going to be awful at all.
Yeah.
I think there's even a great question of okay, well, if this is the meta and everyone's here to play at a professional level, then you better find the best Starvo build that beats all the Starvo builds. That's an interesting puzzle too. That's not a confusing thing. And if the best Starvo build that beats the other Starvo builds is less good against the other non-Starvo builds, well, now you got a decision to make, right? Are you better against the Swiss field, or are you better against the top 8?
And even the Starvo players now, on the upside of this, is they can't count on Starvo being around. So right now they can't be putting in effort. Right. They can, but it's possible you put in all this effort, he wins Taiwan, he wins the Battle Hardens, and he's not available to you come next second. So you better be good with someone else too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty okay.
So I think the biggest piece of this, though, and this is always the case, right? I think communication and expectations, which will relate to the next stream.
Oh, right.
Is always a really critical thing, especially when you're dealing with a lot of players who've spent a lot of time and money to get to this point, even booking trips to New York from Australia. I mean, that's not cheap.
That's true. You're asking a lot
that kind of stuff
from people.
So
it needs to be stable.
When I think if this is where you're going, at any point, once you made this as the choice, personally, I would have rather them just announced a week or 2 or 3 or 6 ago, we're bumping the announcement back to May 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
That's the date. Here's the event. Starvo could rotate out. But we want one final touch point to decide before the biggest event in this game's history. If we determine after all these events that it's not healthy, and for just bump it.
That'd be a good thing to say, wouldn't it?
Kind of a halvesies. It's you're saying that things are fine and you want to challenge players to figure this out, but you're also giving yourself that backdoor window to wiggle if you need to wiggle if it does become a problem, or if he's depending on the numbers, you decide he's a problem, but he didn't win Taiwan.
Yeah.
And it's well, you know what? We don't necessarily want the Pro Tour to beat this vibe. So my general preference would have been whenever that moment was realized, just we're not even having the announcement. We're just bumping it.
Yeah.
The date's moving back. There's these events. He could do his thing, which is really what happened.
Yeah.
That's what feels like happened.
But then, I think in the background of all of this, and I love all of this stuff, I think it's super fascinating because I don't really have to engage with it too much. And so there's probably a lot of people watching that are on my side of the fence. They're I'm not going to the Pro Tour, so I really don't care at all. But it's fun to watch things happen and to have conversations about this kind of stuff. I think this kind of stuff is what makes community games so fun because we have common touch points all of the time about things that are happening that might not directly impact us, but they're in the community space, and so it's always something interesting to talk about, engage with, etc. And on that note, in the background of all of this is, well, what is the point of Living Legend? Because we've been told things throughout the history of the game, and that it's not a balancing tool and it's not about too powerful heroes and these kinds of things. And yet now it is seemingly being used in that exact context, which we all kind of assumed it would at a certain point.
Of course it can be that. Because if, like, star of the show gains this many points this quickly, naturally he goes out of the game, and it's like...
And yet, that was not allowed in Chain or Briar's case.
That's right. If nothing had been done about Briar, as an example, this announcement, she would have been gone.
Yeah. So now you have a lot of shifting sand.
Chain would have been gone a long time ago.
100%. So it's like this background thing, and then it's like, oh, well, Living Legend, I mean, we also have more events than we've ever had. So, like, now there's more opportunity for points. So should we scale Living Legend points based on the number of available points? And all these kinds of things. And what it all looks like to me is like, I think Flesh and Blood blew up for Legend Story. I think it got huge very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the systems that they had in place couldn't slowly grow and adapt, and they could kind of figure out how to tweak them along the way. They had to, like, I think they're having to figure out while the plane's in the air, how in the world are we going to do this? I think what your commentary is on that is like, okay, well, we can just say that. You know,
sure.
You can just say, hey, like, we're going to look at this on May the 2nd. What we're trying to do is prevent the Pro Tour from being a degenerate, not fun to watch metagame.
Yeah.
And so if we feel like we need to take steps to do that, we're going to do that, and we're not going to decide until May the 2nd. We'll see if Bravo goes away on his own.
And I think that's what I like so much about the Chain and Briar announcements they'd made previously was, it's been meme-ified now, but we made a mistake. Mm-hmm. It was directly stated on Duskblade and what was going on with Briar. And it's the recognition that it's okay to mess up, and this game has exploded, and it's very tough. Giant company Wizards of the Coast gets it wrong all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, stuff happens. That's totally fine. But that's where I come back to communication quickly and directly about what's going on and why it's going on. And then, just the miss of, like, you announced a thing that had events listed that weren't actually constructed. That's obviously not intentional, but at the same time, like, that makes you just uneasy.
Yeah, it's just a little stupid thing where it's like you scheduled them at the wrong times or whatever, and then they went up in the wrong order.
It makes you have that, like, underlying feeling of, like, who's piloting, who's driving the car right now. It's like, wait a second, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But I think in the end, the net result, like, there's useful context here, right? So I've had so many experiences with games where these problems were happening way worse in terms of the balancing piece. The communication was way less.
Non-existent.
Yeah, like a good example, a Fantasy Flight with Destiny. There was like a 5-month period where there was just a broken deck. And just let it roll.
Yeah.
Like that was the game for 5 months.
Good luck.
And then they finally announced a system for handling it. They didn't have a band restricted system. They did the point adjustment thing eventually, but like it was just kind of like here it is. Yeah. No communication, no anything. So strikes and gutters, right? Like, just for comparable. But at the same time, like I just think that anytime expectations are set based on past behavior from a publisher, and then things happen differently than that, some amount of people are going to have friction. Mm-hmm. Like personally, I'm excited because May 2nd is going to roll around. I'm already looking at like just booking that whole weekend out. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, what am I doing in the evenings on those weeks?
You're supposed to go to some of those underground comedy clubs. That's the key.
Oh, in New York.
Yeah.
Before I go to New York. By the time before I leave, I've been doing this thing where I only take one deck with me.
Yeah, cool.
Because I don't take extra cards.
No temptation?
I don't, like, as an example, I'm getting in on Wednesday night. You're there on Thursday before Friday. You're getting some practice reps on Thursday, and it doesn't feel that great.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing myself I don't have the choice.
Yeah.
I've made this call.
Yeah.
I'm going to go enjoy the trip, play the game, do the thing that I want to do. So anyways, but I'm in a position where I can actually make that happen.
Yeah.
Any international traveler is probably a lot tougher for.
Yeah, definitely.
Just strictly speaking.
Yeah, man, it's true. So here's what also happens in these kinds of situations. Everyone's probably hip to this phenomenon. You've probably seen it your whole life. You've been playing tabletop games like this for a while. There's like 1 to 5% of the community, is taking things very seriously, which is great. Love that. But then there are also the ones that are generally most inclined to create content, to post about things, to be on Twitter, to record videos. Right? These two yahoos up here, great example.
Some great comments coming in right now.
So in an environment like that, small issues that a minority of people are paying a ton of attention to easily look like giant issues because they start talking about one thing all at once, even though the vast majority of people are unimpacted or not even affected by it. Yeah. But then because we are in a community game situation, that becomes the topic of discussion, and then everybody's talking about it in the Discord channels and on, heaven forbid, Facebook. And so I think it's just important to have context too of like, is this actually that big of a deal? Not really. No.
I mean, for further context, I think there was like 380 or 400 names on the I qualified for the Pro Tour list.
Yeah. Not a great amount of people. Are the majority of people unaffected by a ban list entirely? Yes. Is the fact that the announcements went up in the wrong order, apparently, and the fact that Bravo might Living Legend out, even though the Living Legend system is supposedly not about balance, that's all fine. It's all fine. I mean, that's what Zach and I were talking about earlier. It's like, you don't even know. If you're complaining about anything that's happening here, you're totally, of course, you can do that all you want, freedom of X, Y, and Z. But this is, compared to what we've been through, this is great.
Yeah, I mean,
this is phenomenal.
We literally have a $100,000 event followed by a calling, followed by a battle hard in the same weekend. Like while all these other events are going on,
they're like printing sets.
Yeah, and starter boxes and like products coming out.
Cards
on time.
Are coming out. Yeah. Cards are coming out. That's the first check. Like, are cards coming out, or is there a 6-month delay? Oh, cards are coming out. Okay, well, that's nice. Is there a number of very viable heroes? I played a crazy Dory Dawnblade Razor deck into Zach the other day and won against Vis. Is that going to happen all the time? No. Is that likely to happen most of the time? No, it's not. The fact that it's possible...
got the one time on camera,
The fact that it's possible is like, well, that's wonderful. It gives somebody like me something to do forever. It's like, I can maybe beat it once. Let's try.
Well, I think my kind of closing statement on this, right, is it was a misstep, and it's a certain amount of like the adding the May 2nd as kind of a surprise thing happening. It's a decision that sows a little bit of uncertainty and maybe a lack of confidence among a certain group of people. It's a small group, right? We're talking 400 or 500 people. There were 10,000 plus people playing in the pre-release or the goodbye to Welcome to Wraith.
Yeah. Great event.
So even if we just assume there's like 15, 20,000 players, I mean, we're talking 1 to 2% of players are actually affected by this thing.
Yeah.
It's very small. But if you are in the 1 to 2%, I think the uncertainty you're feeling, the frustration you're feeling, that's all totally reasonable. I get it as part of that group of people that is playing.
Because you're taking it really seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to prepare for something, and it's important. It'd be like if I was preparing for a half marathon. And they're like, hey, maybe we're going to move this to a different date, or like maybe we're not going to let you wear shoes.
Well, it's like, instead of being in Tulsa, we're going to put it in the desert.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, wait a second.
It's like, well, I didn't prepare for that. I've been training for this other thing, and here we are.
But at the same time, I think it's really important to approach these things because this is a small community. This is a smaller publisher. It's newer, right? If constantly it's just this I saw this happen with the spoils toward the end of days, right?
Yeah, oh man, that was a garbage fire.
Was just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more that the only thing that was posted was negativity, the more new players were unlikely to join, right? Because it was like just kind of a toxic community at the end.
You see that everywhere, man.
So all that to say, I think it's
right.
totally valid to have the discussion. I think it's valid to express your opinions, to be upset about it. But at the same time, like as what's the go forward, right? Like, how do you turn this into a productive energy? And I think the feedback, Legend Story getting the feedback that like, even for me today, I'm saying I'm cool with the change right beforehand, but I would rather know that's how it's going to go.
Right.
Well before the event, before it's like travel plans are booked. I went to ProQuest to qualify, and like the whole stacks on stacks of decisions that you made with certain expectations. And feedback is great, but constructive feedback is way different than just like the circle of just angry conversation.
In fact, I would like to get on a soapbox for a second.
Hold on, let me grab it.
Since you totally blindsided me last stream. Now I get to do something potentially. Listen, this whole thing, like, you can express your opinion online and it's totally valid no matter what you have to say. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with that at all. You know why? Because if you're not doing something productive and helpful in some way, I don't care. So just don't post it. Just don't it's easy. Just don't post it. Like if your response to this ban and restriction announcement is the following.
Come on now. Hold on. Let me get my teacup. We'll take a brief moment from our wonderful sponsors.
That's good water.
At Nalgene Water Bottles. H2O of the future.
If your response is, oh, Legend Story sucks now, I'm selling my collection. Just don't post that. Like, you see how easy it was to not post that? I just didn't do it just now. I could be posting that right now, I'm not doing it. It's that simple, right? Because what did you contribute positively there?
Well, I think that's where the framing is really important, right?
Yeah.
A tweet that's like, I can't believe they did this. I'm quitting the game and selling my collection. I'm so angry. Yeah, I mean the feelings I think are valid. If you
everyone can have
frustrated,
feelings,
right?
But this whole idea we got to express our feelings in front of everybody all the time.
But the difference being, and content creators
come
gonna
from
content where it's like you got to have the buzzy extreme
right.
take. 5 reasons this is the worst mistake ever. But realistically, I think what is actually helpful is taking part in the discussion in Discord and on the Facebook group and posting even the tweet, tagging Fab and being like, hey. Definitely understand, you guys have a lot going on. But at the same time, as a player attending this event, I would have rather known about this May 2nd date sooner than later.
Dude, like Jesse responded to that saying like, yo, just for some context of how this affects your player base, like I have this trip scheduled. I may not even have time to figure out what deck to bring now by the time that announcement hits. And that does impact my enjoyment of this event that I'm traveling for.
Because it could literally be May 2nd is like a Tuesday. And then maybe you work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So maybe you get some games in the evening, and then you're flying out on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's like,
that
is probably their plan.
Yeah.
And I can empathize with that moment.
Absolutely.
But just yelling about it is one thing.
That's the thing is there's constructive, like, hey, I don't like this, and here's why. And then there's like, LOL, this sucks now, and I'm out. And it's like, the number of people I've seen, like, they posted the same thing, like, everywhere. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, this game sucks now, I'm leaving. This isn't all games. Warhammer Champions was really bad about this. You talked about spoilers. It was really bad about it. It's like, okay, well, can you just leave? Like, how are you helping anybody? If you're selling your collection, put it on the sales channel and then say, I'm selling this. I don't need to hear about the rest of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Are you ready to build the Via? Anything else to say about the ban and restriction?
No, I mean, could it have been handled in a way that was more pleasing to me? Yes. Am I
welcome to life, right?
Super pumped to be playing in my first Pro Tour at this level of this big of an event ever? Yes.
I'm ready.
Cannot wait. And I'm ready to go.
You know what I hope?
The reps are happening, man.
I actually hope that Starvo is still there for the Pro Tour and that there are decks that are tweaked nicely enough to get a 55% on it or a 60% on it, and that it comes through and it sweeps out the top 8.
Wouldn't it be wild?
We're gonna figure the deck out.
Wouldn't it be wild if the community solved the problem and he actually didn't Living Legend out for like years?
Isn't here
that could, you know what I mean? Like if he doesn't get the points this season,
fundies are strong, but.
And then we get to the Pro Tour and he doesn't win the Pro Tour. I mean, you only score points when you win.
That's right, yeah.
So, statistically, if he's half the top 8, odds are good that he's going to get points. But, hypothetically, it's possible that we could just shut him out of rotating.
I think my final thing is I think the best approach was very close to achieved here. Because you already have 2 release valves on this. One, Starvo is just insurmountable and would naturally Living Legend out. Or 2, Starvo is really hard to beat, but people figured it out, and therefore he didn't win enough to Living Legend out. And if either of those things are true, it's fine for the Pro Tour. So, like, to me, the only thing you had to do there is say, like, if Living Legend happens, we're giving you a May 2nd moment where we are going to honor it.
Yep.
And if the player base figures it out, then it's not gone.
It's crazy how much framing matters.
Yeah.
Because I think if you actually frame it as, we're just bumping this announcement to May 2nd.
Yeah.
Here's the events. Here's the points he could get. If he's actually a problem, he'll be gone.
Yeah. If you guys can't figure it out.
Yep. And,
always tantalize you. The old Damon Stone,
and you can
tantalize the player
not
base.
only if you guys, but it's like, hey, we actually think in our testing there are a lot of answers here, and that people just aren't playing them.
There it is. Boom. Yeah, it could be totally untrue.
But at the same time, no, you don't have to back it up. But you literally, it's like, we're just gonna bump this announcement back. We think there's an answer, but if you guys can't find it, then this will be the natural way that he, goes out. And we're excited about the idea that Star of the Show might be the first ever living legend.
Yeah.
Like, see you on the 2nd.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense he'd be the first living legend, right? Star of the Show. He was a star.
Someone quoted you, which I liked a lot, when we were talking about this previously.
I'm going to get misquoted on this stream.
The circus shows up. Star of the Show is there, and then the circus leaves town, and there it is, it's out of here.
But for that moment, he was just unstoppable. He was winning all the games. He hit the hammer thing really hard. Nobody could beat him. Even Reiner couldn't just hit the hammer hard enough. The thing that goes up.
Yeah, the strongest man. He was ready.
He was the strongest man.
He's thick.
And maybe next Everfest comes around, and he's back, but more balanced.
Oh my goodness, we get the Everfest sequel.
Yeah, like what would you call that?
Dude, just old Bravo. Like he's actually aged.
Oh,
he's like
co-star of the show.
Who's like an old person?
Producer of the show.
That's still on Vegas. The older like singers and performers. Like you have like a Cher moment. Where
the greats.
Although she looks exactly the same.
Yeah, the greats.
But it's sort of like just a better example analogy is. You see wrestlers doing this? Like, I don't know if you know this weekend was WrestleMania and Stone Cold Steve Austin came back.
I didn't know that. I did know the first part. I didn't know the second part.
Yeah, and he's, older.
Did he crack the beers and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
He's still drinking beer.
I mean, it's part of your brand. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
He just comes out and cracks like 2 sparkling waters.
I will say Vince McMahon, bless his soul, is getting old. He's in his 70s. He's still out there wrestling, and it was not pretty.
He's, there's an old phrase from a documentary, he left himself nothing. Vince McMahon, I feel like, has left himself nothing.
Yeah.
He really probably left it all on the court.
Burned the candle at both ends on that one. Yeah. All right, you ready to get out of here? We're going to cut. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about dark horses, and I'm going to be talking about the Wolf Pack.
All right, yeah. So join us for the stream. Come back in quick. We'll just leave the starting screen up for like 5 minutes, and then we'll get right back into it. So thanks, guys, for being a part of this. We love being part of this community. It's so fun. We have takes. They're not always right. I don't know if everyone's figured that out yet. But we'll see you on the next video.